Good day, my friends, and welcome in. Well, let's take a look at the M50 Ontos. Beginning in the 1950s, the U.S. was on the hunt for a lightweight, air-transportable tank destroyer. Similar attempts were made during World War II, but limitations in cargo aircraft carrying capacity limited the vehicle's armor and firepower so much that they were effectively useless against enemy tanks. The M50 Ontos would be the result of a joint U.S. Army Marine Corps project to produce a lightweight tank destroyer. But in the end, only the Marines would actually end up using this odd little vehicle. The M50 would use a small, low-profile, fully tracked hull and an enclosed compartment for the crew. As it needed to be moved by air, thin armor protection was the simplest way to keep the weight low. Subsequently, the M50 had only 13 millimeters of hull, about the same as a Mark I tank from World War I, and just about 6.5 millimeters on the underside. But the showstopper of this vehicle was the main armament of 6 106 recoilless rifles. When the M50 Ontos completed testing in 1955, the U.S. Army rejected it. They considered the vehicle as too lightly armored, only capable of stopping 50 caliber rounds at most, too small, which made it cramped for the crew, and it didn't carry enough ammunition. But the Army's main issue with the vehicle was reloading the rifles. To reload, a crew member had to exit the vehicle, exposing themselves to enemy fire. Although the Army rejected the M50, it actually served to great success for the U.S. Marines in the Vietnam War. Designed initially as a tank destroyer, the Marines used it as a highly mobile fire support platform that could relocate around the battlefield quickly, providing devastating fire with its 6 recoilless rifles. The Ontos proved equally deadly, whether be firing high explosive rounds at buildings and fortifications or anti-personnel rounds at large concentrations of infantry. Alrighty then. When it comes to building the Ontos, there's not a lot of choices out there. There's the brand new Tacom 1/16th scale, and then this little bit older from 2010 Academy kit. For this project, we're going to be using the Academy kit. Now, it's kind of a middle-of-the-road type of kit, not a lot of fancy detail, but we're going to dress it up using the Voyager photo-etch enhancements here, including metal barrels. One of the first things that struck me as I opened up the box and began working on this kit is just how small this vehicle really is. It's tiny. It's a 2-man crew vehicle. You've got your driver, and then you've got your commander, loader, radio operator that's in the back in the turret area there. That's it. It's a small little vehicle, carrying a big bunch of guns. And with all that said, you can imagine that the kit goes together actually very, very quickly here. This could easily be a weekend build. It comes with rubber band tracks, which I will be using on this project as well. Didn't replace the tracks. A lot of the construction and a lot of the complications coming up in this video and this project just have to do with replacing the plastic parts with the photo etch parts. And so here we are. We've got a little bit of a test fit going on here. Again, this is all just the kit parts here. It looks good. It fits well, like I mentioned before. But now it's time to start taking matters into our own hands and start deconstructing our kit and get ready for some of this photo etch here. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and we'll get ready to replace the kit fenders, the plastic fenders, with the new photo etch fenders. Now this all looks a lot more scary than it actually is. Just take your time here. What we're going to do is just basically score along the edge of the fender here between the hull wall and the fender. Just score a few times here just to get the basically a cut started. We're not putting any pressure on this at all. We're just scoring some lines down here. And then once we have these fenders removed, there's always just a little bit of cleanup here, just little rough edges and such, and that can easily be taken care of with the sanding stick. A special thank you to all my amazing Patreon members for your incredible support. Your contributions help me continue to create content for this channel. If you're not already a member, I invite you to join our Patreon community. As a member, you'll gain access to exclusive behind-the-scenes content, early releases, and more. I hope you'll consider joining Patreon and supporting this channel. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get started on bending some of this brass up. These are the fenders, and each fender takes 2 different bends, one upwards, one downwards. The upward one has a bit of an angle to it that corresponds with the angle of the side of the hull. So you kind of have to do a little bit of test fitting to get that right. It's about 30 some odd degrees, I'm guessing. The other side is just a straight 90-degree downward bend. And as usual, when you're working with photo etch or anything that's a little bit fiddly like this, just take your time, get everything set up properly, and then you should have no problems getting just nice crisp edges and good fits. So as you move forward on the fenders here, this is the part that curves around the front of the tracks. And there's also a little section here where there's some extra little mud flaps that can come down a little bit further over the tracks. I've decided to leave those off. They're optional. You look at photographs, they're either on, they're either off. But what I want to do here is create the bolt holes, the holes where this mud flap would be secured. So I'm just kind of making some indentations into the brass itself, and then I'll go ahead and drill those through with my pin vise. Now this is one of those little bit trickier parts here. So we need to make a curve on our brass here. This is the part of the fender that curves over the front of the track. So we're going to use, actually I'm just using my X-Acto knife handle here. It has about the right circumference here. I'm just going to kind of slowly force that bend there. Now I can kind of check my bend, the size of the bend, the angle of the bend by that little flap right there. That should correspond. That should be my proper bend. So as long as I get that right, then I'm good to go. Now that I have all my pieces prepared, now it's for that tricky, dangerous thing. We're going to do some soldering. Yep, I do soldering on almost all of my photo etch parts. It's just a great secure fit, and it's really super easy to do. So I've got some flux there. That's that paste. I'm putting some right in the corner there where I want my join to be with the paintbrush. Just kind of paint that in there. And I've made little tiny chips of solder. That's what I've done earlier on. Those little tiny chips right there. Just grab those and I put those into the flux right into the corner of where I want those two pieces to be mated together. Now, I'm going to kind of hold those together, get that right shape there. Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. This is where you can kind of burn your fingers if you're not careful. Bring my super high-tech 40-watt iron there. Just give it a touch. It sizzles, melts the solder, and I'm done. It's that quick and that easy. This next joint, I want to mate these two parts together. This is that front part of the fender where the bend is with the long part along the side of the hole. And I'm going to do the thing called tinning here. That's where basically you pre-solder these two sections together. So I've got some flux there. I'm going to grab that little chip of solder and I just put some heat there. Now I've pre-melted that solder there. Do the same to the other side as well. And this will prepare both pieces. So now they'll have some solder already there. It's already been melted. And now I got some flux on there. Now I just put the two together, hit it with heat again. It reactivates the solder. And there you go. We have our new fit. Just that easy. Really no cleanup or anything has to be done here. Just nice, crisp, and clean joints. Now, the last thing I need to do is attach the fenders onto the model. Now, there's quite a few different ways you can do that, but I'm going to go ahead and use CA glue here. So first thing I'm going to do is roughen up those fender edges here. This will give a little bit more tooth or bite for the glue to hang on to. And just using a toothpick, using some of that black CA, it's got a little bit of flex to it. Just kind of paint those edges. Now it's just a matter of just getting them coaxed into the right position, holding them there for just a few minutes and letting them dry. And then, as I mentioned, this was like the most visually big detail, the fenders. This gives it the most bling, the most shine to our model here. But there's a lot of builds still to come here and a lot of little photo etch details to add on to the model. So let's just sit back and watch the whole thing come together. I'm going to jump back in here for just a second because these little parts right here, oh, these were a little bit tricky to do. So there's two parts to each of these. I've soldered them together, and they also have to be able to have the right circumference or diameter to go slide onto the gun barrels. This took a little bit of while and a few choice words here and there, but I got them done. They're all ready to go. And now they're onto the model. And here we go. Here's our finished model with all the shiny bling, and we're ready for some paint. But before we do the painting, let's add some sandbags. Yep, just a few. Reference photographs show the front hole of these had a bunch of things just kind of stowed on there. Again, not a lot of room inside, so a lot of stuff just got kind of thrown onto the outside of the vehicles here. Sandbags included, especially because they didn't have, as we mentioned earlier, much armor on these things. So anything to beef it up just slightly, add a little more protection, I'm sure was greatly appreciated. This is Magic Sculpt, so two-part epoxy, A, B, roll them together, made tiny little rectangles into the form, basic shape of the sandbag, started adding some details around the edges and stuff just to make them look like sandbags, and then I press them into place. The model itself now is ready for paint, and I went ahead and painted it using AK acrylics, kind of a combination of two dark green colors here. I wanted to get that really dark green we often see in the Vietnam vehicles, and then breaking out my real color pins. This is the rubber color, and just spinning those wheels around to get the rubber portions of the road wheels all nice and painted just that quickly. And before we get on to the weathering, I'll just go ahead and finish up all these little exterior details. So the sandbags are all painted out here, again, using Generation 3 acrylics, the tools, everything like that all gets painted before weathering. Now that we're on to the weathering, this is going to look very familiar if you've watched any of my prior videos. Maybe a little bit of a twist here. I'm going to start out with a few enamels. These are some dirt deposits, just to kind of build up that base level, especially on the lower part of the hull here. Just kind of dab that on into place. Then after that, my tried and true, I'm going back to the oil paints, and basically the remainder of the weathering is all done using the oil paints, and in addition, some pigments. But we'll just let this run for a few minutes here and we can see how this plays out. Now, finally, as we get closer to the end here, just kind of back up slightly. As I'm waiting for things to dry or I just need a break, I have been working on some figures. Those figures are from H3. They're printed figures. They're really, really nice. They were done all off camera. You'll see them here at the very end as I do the final review. And the final step here is to create a small base. And I kind of struggled with this base, to tell you the truth. I had a different idea in mind. And I just couldn't get it to work out. It was going to be a little bit more of an urban scene. So this is going to be more of a kind of a jungle environment here, kind of just going through the high grass and brush here. So I hope you enjoy the final few shots here of this base being created, and we'll get together at the very end of it. And here we get down to the final conclusion of this project. We've got our base, we've got our figures. Those again are from H3, nice printed figures, really nice to work with. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you want to see more content, I know it's few and far between on the YouTube channel, but I do produce quite a few videos, and those are on my Patreon page. So if you want to see more content, that's the place to go. Check that out. The link is in the description below. Until the next time, everybody, again, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and happy modeling.